And after you do it for a while, it becomes less about the filmmaking, and that becomes so autopilot, and you get to just like live in someone else's world.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Creative Haven. I have the incredible Josh Emerick here, who is a very talented DP and video producer who has his own company that specializes in music videos, but at the same time provides education to young video creators and freelancers and videographers out there on just how to grow their careers. And honestly, Josh, like just our conversation before this, you've got me inspired, and I appreciate you for what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is I wanted to inspire and educate young creators and artists out there to feel empowered to pursue their passions, either full-time or part-time. But before, I start rambling on, I would love for you to introduce yourself, your background, and where you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Owen. I love podcasts like this, so I just hope that I can actually contribute something by the end of this that someone will take away and feel like, hey, that helped me in some way, even if it's 10% more. I'm based in Zanesville, Ohio, which is a really small town, but I do a lot of work in Columbus, Cleveland, and Dayton. A lot, like you said, music videos, that's kind of what I'm known for, but I kind of dip my toes in a lot of different commercial work, wedding work, as well as music videos. I think everyone loves this idea of niching down and becoming like really great at things. And I think that that's awesome. But what I've noticed in the 9 years that I've been doing this professionally is you really start as a niche of wanting to be, for me at least, to become a great DP. And that's like your superpower. Like, okay, I'm getting better at the craft. But even like what we were talking about before, what happens is you start as a specialist and you actually become a generalist. And I think, you become really good at your craft, but you realize that's not enough. What actually takes you to the next level is getting better at those systems, processes, and building the business,
Yes.
and as you start to do that, at least for me, I realized it wasn't even the craft that lit me up the most. It became leadership. It became, building teams, getting creatives like on my team as excited about the projects as I was, not just making something visually beautiful, but how do we make the experience for our clients? How do we make the experience for the talent and for the crew as enjoyable as possible? And today, my mission is, like you said, education and giving back as much as I can in different ways that I can. It's not as easy as it is said, but I try however I can.
I feel you. I know how it is, because I have an online course as well on teaching people about how to make video content. I put out a lot of webinars and free videos. And what I learned when I was a YouTuber is sometimes you just got to be okay with not getting thanked. You got to just be okay with serving the world without the appreciation at first. I think that if you hop into it thinking that you're going to get all this fame and fortune, you're coming in it at a wrong angle when you come in as a service point of view, as in, I'm just going to put this out there just to put it out there. If I get 1 viewer, 10 viewers, whatever it is, at least it's out there. And I'm learning right now with this program called Scaling with Systems, shout out to Robbie, is that it's all about just having enough assets so that when your target audience or your, people out there who you want to sell to or educate or just serve, they go through so much content that they see you as a trusted source to help them grow. And when you first got into your craft of, DPing and whatnot, what was your journey? Was it because you wanted to do just music videos, or did you want to get into short films? Like, what was your filmmaking, or if anything, your video creator journey?
That's a really good question, and it's kind of coming full circle right now. So the very, very start of this is about 16, 17 years ago. In high school, I was into skateboarding, and I was shooting a lot of friends just like to make skate parts. And this all started because I wanted to be able to put music behind our demo tapes to become pro-am, whatever that looked like. And after I got in there and I started editing a little bit in Premiere Pro, I really fell in love with just editing in general. So me and a few friends, like we would shoot short skits, some funny things. And I became obsessed with continuity. Obviously, I like movies and stuff like that, so I understood this, but I never thought I was going to get into video like professionally. In my high school, we had really awesome like arts programs. Like our sports team sucked, but we really had great electives. Like we had architecture, we had graphic design, we had photography, and video editing.
That's a dope
So
school. Jeez, I wish I went
yeah,
to that
man.
school.
Our school is trashed all the time for how terrible our sports team was, but we had amazing instructors that really encouraged a lot of creativity.
Hmm.
So I really love, what that turned into. So skits was like a big deal thing. I liked narrative kind of off the bat, but I was terrible at shooting. I was literally just trying to make shorts. And then I realized I started to get into the cinematography when I was like, I'm not getting the shots I want in post-production. So I started as an editor, and that really started to refine like, okay, how are we going to shoot this? And I was notorious for overshooting. That kind of turned into like, okay, going to college, am I going to go for this artsy fartsy sort of stuff, or am I going to go for something more practical? I went for something practical for engineering. I got all the way down to like 3 classes left and needed, those. And I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to switch careers, do a little bit of audio engineering.
Oh, wow.
And, slowly but surely, I started to think, how do I make video a business? But not so like, I don't want to sound too business savvy. It's just more so like, how can I make money with this and show my parents and people around me that this isn't just for fun?
Right.
So that turned into music videos, then slowly into weddings, then like, building relationships with agencies to do commercial work. So a hybrid of building business and then also being a freelancer. And what's great about that is when you're building your business, what I notice from guys that are in my lane is they're always single shooters, or they like are struggling to like scale. They want to have other people on set. They want to build the skill sets. And a lot of people reach out and they're like, man, I wish I could have your body of work. What really informed a lot of my decisions was, freelancing for other agencies, other directors, other producers, and seeing how they built, medium to larger scale teams, and identifying what do I want to take to my business model? What do I like? What do I dislike? What qualities am I going to completely ignore because this made me feel like crap being on set? So 10 years of professionally doing this, is when this kind of went from like just casually shooting, starting to love light, and then really realizing like I'm good at organizing like and structuring information to empower creative treatments. So that's where I live. Like I'm still an editor, but I really live in my strong position as DP and producer for our projects.
Oh, that's a beautiful story, man. I swear, like a lot of great shooters and videographers come from the skating world. I mean, you just remind me of like the whole TKY2K, the whole like Bam Margera, like Jackass, like era.
Bam.
Oh my gosh, I remember that because I, was getting into a lot of the camcorder filming as well. I mean, I remember I had my camcorder with the MIDI DVs, and you can't just upload your videos. You got to sit there real time to transfer your videos onto your tapes.
Painful.
Yeah, and then like that one time that like the tape just like stops, and then you forget, and it's just a bunch of black screen. But it's so cool that you actually started as an editor as well, because I edit and shoot, and editing is a really great way for you to not shoot too much, but at the same time, it's a really great way to like shoot to edit, and like you already have it in your mind like how it's going to edit. And there's so many different like questions I have for you, because it's such a great conversation. Because do you feel that people who first start out and they're shooting, they're editing, they're doing the producing and production and all of that, should they learn all that, or should they specialize straight away and then grow the team around them?
I'm more on the side of I think you should do a little bit of all of it. The hard part was, and this is my weakness as a leader, is when I was starting out, I was wearing a lot of hats. Learning how to delegate was one of the hardest things. And what's difficult about being a creative is you hear these words, DP, producer, and it's all kind of foreign because everyone does it differently. My style of producing is drastically different than other people. My style of DP is different than other people. And it's like, it's not so defined by a word. I think it's important to ask another DP, or to ask another producer, or to ask another editor, what do you prefer? And as you start to do that and you ask for feedback, that actually informs a lot of your decisions going forward. So early years, I was doing everything and learning how to tell someone, hey, here's why I want this light over here. Here's how you can help me best. Because I would snap on a lot of my crew in my younger years because they'd be like, hey, what can I do for you? And I wasn't pre-thinking through what are the problems we're going to have on set and how can I delegate that as best as possible. So when I was really like starting to grow the business and bring more people on, it took a lot of like internalizing and pre-planning and actually like not just being like, here's our creative vision and let's go be creative today, guys, but really being like, what are going to be the hard points that I know are already going to be hard that I could delegate this work off to someone else, and not in a boss sort of way, but in a way of like, you see that I'm doing something else. This isn't anything I wouldn't do myself. I'm just asking you this because we want to make the best experience for our client and we want to all feel productive. You know, it's hard asking someone to do something when you don't have that already. But when you kind of switch the headspace to like, everyone wants to do a good job, everyone wants to feel good about the job at hand, and when you give them the information to do that, they feel a lot more lit up about doing that. Now, fast forwarding to today, something we do with projects is I really, it got under my skin when I work for other people and I get like a call sheet like 6 hours before you got to be on set. Because I come on set and the first half of my day, I'm figuring out what we're actually doing. And then I start to provide my best value midway through the day. What I realize is like everyone wants to have that information. So when we prepare projects, I always try to get things out at least like 4 or 5 days, if not 2 weeks before. Mm-hmm. So we spend a lot of time, you know, planning this. So one, we can have that sign off from our client, so they're crystal clear on what we're doing, because you're aligning a lot of people's schedules. But two, you know, we always take on production calls with like the whole team beforehand. I let them, one, ask questions, you know, so they can be like, is this what we're doing? Are we all on the same page? And it also gives me time to kind of talk about, here's the relevance of this project for our company, the relevance for you, and the relevance of like what this means like in general, like why you guys should be emotionally bought on this just as much as I am. And what I notice is paying that respect to our freelancers, they're a lot more willing to show up for me and do things for me, and maybe even drop other projects, even if it's not paid as much, because they enjoy the culture that we've created with our business. I'm just a company of one too. You know, like I'm the only person on payroll. Everyone's a freelancer, subcontractor, but I want to respect them like they're actual team players.
Wow. No, this is great. It's for a lot of people out there, especially video creators who have their own businesses, and videographers and filmmakers who are figuring out how to delegate. Because like you said, sometimes, like even for myself, it was hard for me to delegate because sometimes you want to hold on to all that money. At first you're like, I want to shoot, produce, edit, direct because I get to keep all of this. But then you get 4 projects, 5 projects, 6 projects in a week, and you find yourself with deadlines that you can't meet. And that's when you start realizing, okay, if I want to scale, then I want to be able to hire editors, then I need to, you know, let go of this part of my project, on my budget. Yeah. And then at the same time, it's like, what do you truly enjoy? Like, do you really like being a grip and a gaff? Like, do you really like doing the production? I mean, the producing, or do you really like camera opping? Like, once you figure out all the different types of roles on a film set and production, then you can see what you want to delegate. It's like, what do you don't like? And I think that's a really important thing, what you said, where you are wearing all hats, because for you to be able to tell the DP and the camera op what kind of lens they should use and how they're going to set up that light so you can get that film noirish look. And they can at the same time, you know, tell your line producer, like, we need to get, you know, this permit, we need to scout this location, and we need to get this call sheet out ASAP. Like, people follow you more. And it's crucial to really give people the vision beforehand, because like you said, I don't like it when people just show up on set just to show up on set, and they just act like it's a job. But when you actually learn what they really want to accomplish in their lives, like, what do you want to be? You want to be a writer? Okay, you're on set. So let's figure out how we can, you know, make you learn something about writing. I know you wanted a PA, just a PA, but how can you learn? And then what is it about this project that make you passionate about it? Because then they'll be able to work those 18-hour days and then also drop other projects. And for you, when you started scaling and you started working with freelancers and being like the, you know, the one-man band right now, like in your company, how is it wrangling in creatives? Like, what did you have to do differently to work with a bunch of creative people?
I'll share a story. This is a good question that I actually like talking about. So obviously, like, when we were kind of getting our first couple years, like it was all with like the homies, like really close friends. And like while I loved working with them, the challenge that I really wanted to undergo, because the homies are going to love me even if I rip their head off for a moment because something's going wrong. But I had a friend come up to me at a party, and he was a little bit drunk. Actually, he wasn't a friend at the time. He came up and he said, "Hey, I love the music videos that you do. I'm getting into marketing in school right now, and I just wanted to let you know, like everything that you're doing, like it's so impressive to me." And he's like, "You've inspired me to basically go to school for marketing, because you're not just a music video guy, but I noticed like you're doing marketing for the bands that you're working for, and that's so interesting to me." And that struck me, even though he was, a little bit drunk. It was just like, it struck me because I was like, oh, other people are paying attention to what we're doing. Talked with my, not director at the time, but Ross, business partner. And I was like, listen, like, I think I want to bring someone in who's not one of the homies. And he was like very on the fence, but I was like, I think not only do we need to start bringing in people like that, but it's going to challenge me to become a better leader and to grow more, because this is someone who can literally rip us apart if we do something wrong. And we were all on the fence about this. But for me, when I did this, it really cemented in my mind. I have more language for it now, but I really look for a three-dimensional kind of people. And there's one key element that I'm looking for more than anything else when I'm hiring a creative. And not everyone's this way, but this is the way we view it as a business. There's your skill set, whatever you want to call it, your experience, what you know. There's the gear that you bring to the table. But the most crucial thing that I'm looking for is attitude. Like our client experience is priority. I don't want it to feel like a production. I don't want it to feel like cameras. Most people are uncomfortable in camera, and a lot of what we're doing is harnessing the best performance out of people. So if we can kind of remove the fact that it feels like you're being shot, then you can really like get the best performance out of people, and they feel more comfortable. So for me, I want people on our set that bring a carefree, laid back kind of attitude that makes everyone feel like just like they can be themselves. And that to me is like the core thing, the attitude piece. So yes, you can have the cool gear. Yes, you could have 10 years of experience is one thing, but I'll be honest with you. I brought DPs on who have 10 years of experience over me, who slow everything down because they're so focused on the technicality and they don't care about the culture that JACP has. So to me, it's like attitude first. You need to understand, here's how you're going to add the most value to my set. And in return, the value that I'm going to add is I want to give you information. I'm an open book. Like, ask me questions. If I can level you up in your career, if I can give you an opportunity to be in lighting when you've been a PA for 4 years and you're just struggling, that's the open dialogue I always have. Like, I'm not just bringing people on because I can buy my problems away. I'm bringing people on that I can trust.
I love that, because it is so true when you have a set and you have someone that's either a diva, someone who's asking for way too many things, or people who are just taking too long to set up shots. I know exactly how that is with DPs and camera departments that do take way too long to set up a shot when we have a call sheet and we have a schedule. And I get the idea of the art, but it's also a business. And I think that it's respect for everyone on set to be on time. And I get it that shots take a long time, but at the same time, like, this is your craft. And so find a way to make it work with everyone around you. It's not so that everyone's working for you. And when you are dealing with clients, I love this idea now, like being client facing and being a creative. Like, what is your ideal client relationship? Because we're talking about now, like, how we should act for clients and how we should be open, make them feel comfortable on set, and also be business minded. Although, what is a perfect client for you? Like, what is your ideal client situation? So all the people out there who want to hire us, production companies, can learn.
Yeah. Again, another great question. We have a pretty thorough vetting process, and it doesn't seem like it's this crazy vetting process, but like it always starts with a discovery call. Like I want to just hop on the phone and not talk about the project at hand. But I want to see if like our energy kind of aligns. Like, are you the type of person that like we can have a phone conversation with and feel like it's like, when you're starting out, you take on anything. You say yes to a lot of things because like, I got to get the reps in. I got to show people that I produce quality, dope work. But as you progress, you start to realize like, oh, like this person actually had a great budget, but their attitude was so toxic that like, even though I got paid well, this project wasn't worth it because it turned into 4 months of revisions and because I didn't have the backbone or set the expectations clear enough. And I'll also say this, creatives, like, it's not always the client's fault. It's our fault as well. We need to look at each project we take on and say, what went well, what went bad, and how do we kind of like manifest like the best projects going forward. So it always starts with a conversation. Usually I do like the vetting process of like, hey, let's just get to know each other. Tell me where, like, have you done a project like this before? Is this new to you? Like, how can I kind of educate you and figure out what kind of client you're going to actually be? Are you starting fresh? Have you made a bunch of mistakes with project before and you need us to fix things? Like, kind of gauging like, how are we getting into the project outside of creative? Like, what's the mission? What's the why of like your brand or your band or whatever that is? And then kind of informing them, like, not just like, do we do creative work, but hey, understand, like, when you hire us, like, we're bringing freelancers jobs. We're also bringing to the table like the best practices that we can. And we, you know, one of the things that is a big pet peeve is when someone comes to us and says, hey, we need a project in 2 weeks. Like, it needs to be released by then. Well, you should have talked to me 2 months ago. Like, I can recommend you someone else, but pre-production takes time. And a lot of times I'll even ask, like, where is this imaginary deadline coming from? Oh, we just want it in 2 weeks. Okay, well, that's not a strategy. Like, if we rush pre-production and then production goes bad, like, that impacts how slow post-production is going to go. If you give us 2 to 3 weeks to properly, prepare this, it's going to make a better experience, which you're going to enjoy at the end of it. It's not going to be rushed and kind of chaotic. Like, if you're working with us, you're coming to us because you like the work that we do. And the way that we achieve those results is by aligning everyone, your team, your location, your gear, all your schedules. Maybe you got 3 or 4 talent in this too. Like, we have to consider sometimes 10 to 20 people's schedules all being aligned for production to work effectively. So alignment, I guess, is the big thing. Clarity, like respect of time. Like, I want to not only protect my time, but if I'm bringing my freelancers into this, I don't want them to work with someone who's not respecting my time and then not respecting their time, which impacts their experience, so that they don't want to freelance for me anymore. Like, this is the whole chain effect of like, how does my business get to continue doing the work that it does? And it all comes down to just good alignment.
That's so true. The whole idea of just qualifying your clients, because there is a time in the beginning of everyone's career as a creator, and you're just a business owner. We take on business just to get the business so you can pay the bills and expenses. Then after a while, after a few horrible nightmare clients, we realize, I don't want to work in this certain sector or this industry or this vertical, because these type of clients aren't what I'm passionate about. And at the same time, there are a lot of times where you fall into a vertical that you never knew you liked. Like, you realize, like, for me, I didn't know I was going to be a really good food content creator. Like, I'm really good at it. And I didn't know where that came from. I'm a filmmaker. I shot off a short film 2 weeks ago and just a bunch of other, different styles of projects. But for some weird reason, I'm really good at food videos and I'm beginning to like it. And on top of that, with those clients that come in that still offer a lot of money, if they are problem clients and they are not qualified, or at the same time they have a lot of drama attached to them, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Because we have to look at our time and the value of our time. And it's all about just looking at what is the future going to look like for them, how they want it, and can we provide that result? And if there's too many expectations and there's too much hand-holding, go for somebody else, because there are also more qualified people out there that's right for you. And when you jumped into, when you started educating, a lot of people about the business of video creating, like, what did you find was like the most ideal student, right now? Like, how are you finding your, students, and what do you feel like are the ones that are going to be successful when it comes to creating a video business?
The educator thing came very natural to me. And it wasn't like I intentionally was like, hey, today I'm an educator. Like, that's what I'm going to do. What I realized was, like, a lot of the freelancers that I would hire or the people that would reach out to me were more so like, hey, like, I love the way, like, you talk about breaking down your projects. Like, forever, my social media presence has always been like, I hated when people were vague and mysterious and just like, let me show off like my awesome shots. My attitude was like, I wish someone was giving back and explaining how things were done.
Right.
So I've always been a little bit more long-winded in the way that I talk, in the way that I write posts. And it's more so like, I want to give you a peek behind the scenes because you can do what I can do. When people were like, oh, wow, like, you're so talented, I can't wait to get to where you are. Like, what I'm doing is is not unreachable, and the craft is only one side of it. Like getting to know people, like one of the best parts about being a filmmaker, you know, like outside of meeting a bunch of different bands, a bunch of different businesses, is you really get a peek into other people's worlds to learn about what they're doing. So you get to constantly learn about different facets. And after you do it for a while, it becomes less about the filmmaking, and that becomes so autopilot, and you get to just like live in someone else's world. Mm-hmm. So as an educator, it's like I'm usually telling people, like, it's not about the gear, it's not about the tools, like those are important, learn that stuff, but get it to autopilot, because what's really going to like break you through is the way you make someone feel. Like as a wedding photographer, wedding videographer, most of the people I'm working with aren't models. They don't feel comfortable in front of camera. So like get into the psychology of it. I can't go in there and make a beautiful wedding film until I break through to them that I'm a comfortable person that you can let your guard down with. I want to make authentic stories. Like as a documentary person, like I want them to feel comfortable. So it's not like the best gear that's going to make your wedding film better. It's going to be making them comfortable and understanding that they're very uncomfortable. So how can I be the upbeat, goofy, like make fun of myself type of person to where they drop their guard? You know, like when I go and interview like different businesses and they have to talk about their business, most people like to talk about themselves, but they don't feel comfortable talking about it in front of a stranger. So how do I prep them for that interview as a director or as a DP to lower their guard? Like it's really a lot more about psychology than it is about gear, than it is about like having like the best team and about knowing all the specs. Like we did a project yesterday, and you know, like the people working with me weren't my typical crew, and they were very buttoned up, and it's like let's make this feel very production oriented. I literally was like, let's chill it out, guys. Like this person is introverted, she's a little bit uncomfortable. I want to remove her from the production. So I don't want to call out ruling. I don't want to call out like all these things that makes it feel like a production. I want her to feel comfortable, because that will get her best performance. Like we have to think not about how great the lighting is or about how great the camera is, but like your talent is conveying the story. So if you can make your talent comfortable, you get the best story, the best imagery out of it.
That's true. I'm reading a book, Directing Actors, and it really is all about, you know, giving actors, you know, the freedom to take on the character and the space, the safe space to be vulnerable, to have that experience, to show people what they convey and how they're going to express this character, and giving them small adjustments, because actors go through a lot of vulnerability when they're on set. You know, it's really hard to, you know, be an actor. I've taken some acting classes and I understand now. And I always learn, what I've always found, like what you said, is how can you make them feel comfortable? How can you make them feel safe? And it's the same thing with people who are untrained, you know, CEOs of businesses, for founder videos, to, you know, like you said, wedding videos. Like, how can I make this so that you're not ashamed of who you are on camera? Because people get really self-conscious. You know, do I look good? Am I going to sound great? Am I going to look like a professional? I'm going to sound like an idiot. It's the whole idea of how can I coach you? How can I also be your friend? And how can I be your director? And that's such great advice, because I think that I've been on sets and I've had crew members who are just not good social people. I mean, just honestly, they yell, the tone of their voice, like.
No, and here's the thing. I have technical people that I hire too, but I'm very aware when I'm hiring them. So like my AC that I've used for years, he just is tech as can be. He has a great attitude, but I'm never going to ask him to be the super social guy who's going to like go chit chat with the talent. Like he totally can, but like his strengths are definitely in just like getting things set up and doing the very tedious technical things. So I'm like, it's great to have that person in the background that can kind of do those things and not draw a lot of attention to it. Like he doesn't want to be the center of attention. So I know how to play him. So as a leader, like it is important to understand, like not everyone's going to come to you the way that you want them, but like, is it at least a player that you can use to your advantage in a way that makes it a win-win for both parties? You were asking, like, as the educator thing, like one of the bigger things that I see, and a lot of creatives in general, is it's usually like fixing their belief system. And I was guilty of this for years. Like the strongest thing that I can do is usually like help them understand like, what do you want to do in general? But also like they have a lot of walls up of like, oh, well, like I've never been on a big set, so I can't be on a big set, or I don't understand how to make money of this. Like I had an AC that worked for me for a little bit, still working with me. He's a hybrid of positions. And, you know, for him, he could never imagine charging more than like $75 for a day's worth of work. And after talking a little bit and informing him, because not to say that it's gatekeeping, but like there's a lot of information, like obviously state to state things change, but it's like, as an AC, like you could make $600 a day easily. And like until he heard that, he had the limited belief because no one had informed him of that. So for me, it's like I like to be pretty transparent with people, even if I'm hiring them for like $200, just so you know, like I want to build upon this skill set. And just so you know, you can make $600 a day in our market. So what I want you to understand is right now, you may only be making this dollar amount, but this is the perceived value it has. And I want to get you to that $600 mark. And I want to introduce you to people who are going to hire you at that $600 mark. And at the end of the day, my reputation is attached to that. So I don't want to just grow people to grow my business. I want to grow freelancers that can help grow other people, and it impacts the creative community as a whole. Like there's competition, yes, is a thing, but I think there's healthy competition. And when you grow people together, it just is a win-win across the board for everyone, for the companies, for the brands. Like one of the hardest parts with clients is like so many people have their defenses up. Like if you're working with me for the first time, I know the first project, like sure, I'd like to do something bonkers, but a lot of times I'm coaching people and like, you know, when we present our proposal, it's like usually a 1, 2, and 3 option. One is like the full balls to the wall, you know, then we have a middle grade, then we have a lower level. Oftentimes I'm pushing them more towards the lower level ones. And I'm saying, listen, this is a relationship. Like I want us to continue working together. And maybe it's a little bit safer, both investment and from an energy standpoint, to start on this lower level so we can kind of work out the kinks and understand how we work together, client and production company best. Then as we start to build projects in the future, we can reach for those higher goals together. And it's so much smoother.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was just creating a proposal right before this, and it's giving people the options at first. Because when you tell someone, I'm gonna charge you $25K straight off the bat, and then not give them the option to actually, you know, learn more about how can you work with me at first so that we can have this a relationship. Because sometimes people just want to get comfortable with you at first. Some of my best clients, I gave them the introductory price, and now I'm on there I'm getting hired consistently at the higher rate, because I've built that trust, and I've built also the language. When I'm able to tell a client, look, the first time around, I'm just going to do as many notes as possible so I can figure out your style. Once I figure out your style, from this point on, the notes process is going to be minimal, because all you got to do is tell me, do this. And I'm like, okay, I know what your notes were before. Let's figure this out so that we don't have these notes processed, and we can, you know, the turnaround for this could be 2 weeks. And so it's so great what you said about, you know, just really telling the clients, like, this is the options you get, and also understanding their goals and really understanding people's missions, understanding their visions. And it's a two-way street. How can I help you? And also goes for your freelancers. It's so great what you said about building a great community and training people to become that person that could essentially be your competitor down the line, right? Yeah. We are teaching our future competitors, but it's a future, like it's a healthy collaboration. Like, just like I said yesterday, I'm mentoring someone who has their own, video production company. But in my mind, I'm like, awesome, because if I can't take on a project, she gets it. And then it's happening to me now. My friend has a really successful production company. If I saw him as competition, I would have stopped talking to him. But because we talk to each other on a consistent basis, he throws me projects. And
Well, on that same note, like the way I view it, especially in the music video space, a lot of guys who do music videos, like whether it's hobbyists or whether they're like still getting their feet wet, it's not necessarily that they mean anything spiteful by it, but a lot of what I picked up on is like, what's the pain points of working with other videographers? And a lot of times, and we were guilty of this early on, it's like, it took forever. It was like 20 hours and we just wanted it to end. And like, for me, a music video should be fun. Like even in our pre email like the night before is like, guys, like come with a can-do attitude. Like make sure we're going to have snacks. We're going to have water. We want this to be fun. And even when I'm designing the schedule, I'm trying to think about, like, usually we start with the least sexy things first. Like a lot of other people I know are like, oh, I'm kind of shooting for myself and I'm going to start with the more creative things. What I like to do is like usually start with like band shots. I work with a bunch of metal, hard rock bands. So to me, like that's not the sexy thing, but it's actually the most important. Like from a marketing perspective, especially if you're a band that's going to play live, the most important thing to market is your face value. Like if you're going to go play live and you have high energy, you need to capitalize on that. And so many bands come to us a week, oh, we want to do this awesome story and blah, 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 and metaphors and yada, yada, yada. That's all great. But if this is your first music video, the most important thing for your fan base to see is your face value, your energy. What are they going to expect at a show? Yes, let's sprinkle in some artsy fartsy stuff. The problem is a lot of guys do things that are kind of more vanilla with the band shots. Like I can still make band shots look good. Like let's start there. And what's great about starting there is it keeps the energy up. They're like, oh wow, momentum. We're getting stuff knocked out. So then at the tail end of the day, they have an option to hang around when we're shooting the B-roll or the storyline if it doesn't include them. Yeah, like if they've had a great day, they usually stick around. They're like, cool, I want to see this. Or if like we're bringing someone in from like out of state and they're like, okay, we got to drive after this, like we can get them out. And it's like, cool, you were here for the thing that you need and now you can dip out of here and do your own thing. Regardless, this is designing a project that, again, the experience is good. But the constant feedback that we get is like, like we'll do like multi-films in a day. Like we'll do like 2 or 3 songs. So we'll bring a band in who's like has an album to support. And we'll be like, okay, so you need 3 videos for this album. Let's think about your album cycle, not just the video at hand. So we design like, okay, day 1, we're going to shoot all 3 of these videos at these 2 or 1 location, however we're designing that to look. And then day 2 is maybe our storyline. So it's like they can come be a part of that, or they can dip out, do their own thing. But the constant thing that we hear is like, man, we shot with so-and-so and it's like, this took so long to do. And like, it was cool. And like the videos turned out great or whatever, but it's just like, it felt like we were held hostage. So for me, like you can shoot for your reel. Yes, it's important to do good quality work, but you do need to think about how you're making people feel, how the experience is actually contributing to or taking away from your business. And I think that's always been our strengths, is like, I want to make great imagery. I want to do that, but I also want to do it in a way that I'm not holding someone hostage. I want them to enjoy what we're creating together. And that to me is like, as another creative, like think about what you're contributing to them and what's most important to you. And even explaining up front, like if like you're really just shooting for yourself, tell them that. That's fine as well. Like if you want to do a project that's like a spec work piece and you're like, listen, I want this to be my best work possible because I'm trying to evolve or I'm just trying to get my name out there. Let them know this might take me a little bit of time because I'm trying something hard. A lot of times if you let someone know up front, that's fine. But if I'm selling like we're going to get 3 videos done, I better deliver 3 videos, because at the end of the day, they're kind of paying for a completed project. And if you can't have a completed project, then it doesn't matter how good the quality is.
Brilliant. No, I totally agree. It's the way I also work with brands and clients. It's like, what are your inclusions? What are the shots that you want? And then let me knock those out. Let's get the coverage, and then let's get weird. Let's get weird and let's show my voice, because that's what it is. It's like, let's do the things that you want, you need, that's going to get you results. But at the same time, let's make you different from everybody else. And why you hired me is because I have this unique voice and vision, and getting to that point where we could do the same thing, like get weird and also have the standard coverage shots in one day in a very like, functional and logical way where no one's confused. That's a sign of a really good leader, because a lot of people, I've seen sets where it's just disorganized and the shots are all over the place and people don't know what they're shooting. But if you know, like at the beginning of the day, I tell my crew, look, we're getting coverage and then we're getting weird. Okay. So then once we get weird, like we're going to go crazy fun, but at least we had that master shot and we had those mediums and close-ups, but now we get to go handheld gimbal and go crazy with the jib. So let's go at it. But dude, like seriously, Josh, we can go so on and on about this. And I want to be respectful of your time as well. Like another question I always ask people, and as a creative, when you are coming up with these ideas, how do you get into your creative flow? How do you get into that flow where you're on set and you're just hitting all your marks and hitting all your shots? And also, how do you get into your flow to come up with the ideas to pitch to your clients?
Yeah, so I'll just speak for the music video side of things, because I think that's the highest level stuff that we do from a production standpoint. myself and my director, like I said, we start, and I usually like kind of just ask like, why are you interested in working with me? And then help inform them of like what we do best, yada, yada, yada. And then usually like demos come over, whatever that looks like. And like our theme for a long time is ideas made possible. And that is very intentional of like, I need, like as an artist, as a musician, you have feelings to this. Like your ideas, they're not professional video makers. So it is our job to kind of help them know what's possible and what isn't. But a lot of times we're like, let's hear what the theme of your song is about, or what the theme of your album is about. Like I like to start high level. That's why I start with kind of the consultation up front. And it's like, let's figure out what the theme is. Let's figure out like, do you already have other pieces of artwork? Like, have you got the artwork for your album done? Like, is green a prominent color? Is red a prominent color? Because those all play intentional rules. Like, I don't want to just make a video that seems cool to me. I always see ourselves as almost positioning as like hired art directors for the artists we work with. Like I want it to feel like there's a marketing team. Like most of the artists we work with are local musicians, and that's not by like accident. I like to give the smaller guys an opportunity to feel as big as the bigger guys. Like I don't treat my artist as local. I treat this as a client. And I'm like, how do we make this look as big as possible? And then for me, like the headspace that I always have is simple executed dynamically. So like, let's dwindle this down. Like, let's make this idea as simple as possible, as digestible as possible. And my style is usually like two worlds, and it's like two things kind of going on in harmony with each one of our videos. A lot of my videos they're not all like that, but it's usually like, how does like this universe fit together and kind of juxtapose one another? Because a lot of songs kind of have the dynamics of like, like we raise and we crash, we raise and we crash, and maybe we have some cleans, then we have some more aggressive parts. So it lends itself to, here's a visual language here, here's a visual language here. They do need to feel like they play together, or they're very intentionally the opposite. So that's like the rules that I kind of start with. Mm-hmm. But after, like I have a rule of 100. I listen to the song at least 100 times, and I'm kind of writing out my ideas. And then usually me and Ross kind of come to the table together and kind of chat about what he's thinking, what I'm thinking. I think very much in color. I think very much in rhythm of the edit and how I kind of see the energy. So I'm very focused on the band shots. It's probably where my creative taste always lands, is I'm like, okay, I'm hearing how this hits. So this is slow motion, or this is standard motion, or this is aggressive, or let's bring in some diffracted light. Like, okay, this song is about being in your head. So refracted light makes a sense. So I think that way. And he tends to think more vision and story of like, okay, so like this song is about depression. So like, how do we kind of communicate that through attire? How do we communicate that through the story? And like, okay, their artwork is this. So bringing that all together and then giving it like real harmony. That's the front end of production. Now, leading up to it, I'm always nervous getting to set, basically until I've created our shot list. And our shot list is pretty loose. It's not like hyper detailed. It's more so like, okay, like we have 3 lighting looks. Here's what needs to happen in these 3 lighting looks. Like lighting look 1, this is the traditional band shots. Lighting look 2, we're going to pull them apart and do single shots, and it's going to be a different look. And then lighting look 3 is like for our narrative piece, the B-roll. And they harmonize together because it's the single shots are red, and then the story is going to implement red. So color plays a big role, and I think it just simplifies things and it makes everything feel really intentional. And that's like a simple formula, I think, to make a really successful music video. Now, my other thing is, you'll see I bookend almost all of our videos, like foreshadow the front and end it with the same, like, and then what does that mean? So I don't know, like that's, I guess if I had a formula, that would be it. But I always feel like art direction kind of plays the biggest role. Like, how are we going to bring art direction together? Is it the attire? Is it the color? Is like, what can we play into? Like we did, sorry to harp on, but we did this really awesome, simple music video. We just made these odd shapes, like with cutout holes and stuff in them. And it was just band shots. And then we had like a dancer who was a ballerina dancer. It was a hard rock video. And we played everything off of literally the lead singer's like hair. She had blue hair and she had red lipstick. Mm-hmm. So everything played off of that color palette. We did like a really clean look, so those blues would punch really well. And then we did band shots that were also in a creative, like colorful look as well, that matched those colors. And then we built in this wall so that the dancer could move around, and everything played with those colors. And it was just really simple. Like, the whole idea was like limbo, living in limbo. So this female dancer was in a studio and she's dancing around, and it's all like this limbo area, and like The biggest thing was like, let's build some walls that have unique shapes and then have the lighting play a role that felt unique and interesting. It's in my opinion, the highest production value video we've ever done.
Wow. You know what? We vibe on so many levels when it comes to directing and creating. And I love your whole process, just listening to it, because I see that you are so in tune with the music and then seeing the music visually. And trust me, I understand, because I cut to the beat. I cut to the music. And when I listen to a song, it really gives me visuals, and I see in there. And I love your idea of creating themes out of colors, asking them what's their brand color, what is their album cover, how can this all be congruent, so that when it comes to branding, when it comes to the release, it's all congruent, it all syncs, it all matters, and the branding is consistent. And I love how the whole idea of just going through the listening to it 100 times, and then just like being on set and going with the vibe, having a loose shot list it's great to have that shot list there, but sometimes you could get on set and you realize, holy crap, that lighting that I was thinking about does not look good right now, but let's this whole vibe right here with this natural light coming in here, let's play with this. At the same time, it's like, you know what, a wide doesn't look good right here, let's go with the 50, let's go with the 85, let's find ways to just move with the current flow and also stick with this plan. Like, it's always about, to me, having some kind of restriction, which is the script, the outline, the treatment, the shot list, but then also giving that space for freestyling, that space for creativity, because sometimes the gold and the gem comes from that spontaneous moment where someone on set, that artist you have, does something on the shot. You realize, holy crap, can you do that again? Can you whip your hair right here with the sun, because you're flaring through your hair, and I got to figure this out. But it's the whole conversation about how you take a song and then create the visual representation of that. It's brilliant, and I think it's great advice.
It's also a good hack for, like, I don't know if you've read the book Win Without Pitching, Manifesto. It's a simple, easy book. They talk about malpractice and how creatives don't actually, like, a lawyer or a doctor, if you have malpractice, you can be sued. A lot of us creatives have malpractice all the time and no one sues us. So, like, for me, I'm just like, man, like, I really like that idea. And it's holding yourself to a higher standard. One of the things in the book, though, is like instead of like pitching your creative vision, a lot of times it like, especially with music videos, but I think this applies in a lot of different areas. Like, listen to your clients. What do they actually want out of this? Yes, you are the authority in your space and you need to earn that authority, but you earn that authority by listening really well, by actually taking what they're saying and giving them actual tangible value. So when I'm pitching a treatment, I'm taking a lot of those ideas we have in those calls and I'm pitching what we talked about. So it's not like, oh, there's a curveball here. Like, we've talked about this. So, okay, now we can talk about how we make this real. One of the things that I think makes us very successful is we take ideas, and I think a lot of creatives live in the idea world, and I'm always putting it into like, here's the action plan. So here's how we really do this. So then I think that earns a lot of trust. Like, when you build a good production book leading up to with the call sheet and with the team and everything there, it's showing your work. So a lot of creatives get frustrated when they're like, oh, the client showed up late or this or that. Well, what have you done to create accountability for them, clarity for them that, we were here at 8:00 and we asked you to be here at 9:30 because we've laid out the day in a hyper organized way. Like, you understand by 10:30, we're shooting your first scene. I've laid out the plan. So now I have a tool for accountability. And what I notice is people respect our time when we lay out those tools for accountability. So I think as creatives, we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard because it just makes that experience smoother. It makes all, and like you said, that production book is like, here's 90% of the plan, but we have 90% of that plan, and it opens up 10-20% more for creativity when we're nailing out our schedule, when we're nailing out the day on schedule.
And it's true, because the client, I mean, at the end of the day, someone is still paying you. We always like to think, oh, we're working for ourselves, we're our own boss. But sometimes it really is the client is the boss. I'm sorry to say that. And also, even when you are creating stuff online, let's say YouTube or whatnot, your fans become the boss. Like, are they going to like what you're going to do? You know, and ideally, you have to think about how can you do one for you and one for them. And what is that balance? What's that balance where you feel fulfilled and you still get your creative voice out there and you still look unique like an auteur, but at the same time, you can make someone else's vision come to fruition, and also bring the result that they were looking for. Because this is a collaborative process. This is a win-win situation. You can't just be a selfish creative and just say, this is all me. This is my reel. This is my vision. Because what kind of set you're going to have? What kind of project and reputation are you going to have at the end? And so I love that. And it's really great to hear this from you, because I think that a lot of creatives out there, they're learning now that it's no longer just the director on set that's just telling people what to do. You do have to pick up a camera and just go out there and shoot. And when you're getting your clients, rather than go finding an agent, you got to go find your own client. And then when you find your own client, that's when it starts becoming a business. And it's no longer just you as a creative coming up with cool ideas. It's like, how can I make this client happy? How can I keep this going so I can have a sustainable business? At the same time, how can I feel fulfilled? So Josh, thank you so much. And before we go, what's like your advice for a lot of the video creators out there who are starting their own businesses, who are trying to create something that, pays the bills, but also keeps them creatively fulfilled? What's your advice for them out there?
I mean, piggybacking on what you just said, at the simplest level, something I heard a long time ago is learn to learn, and you can do anything. I think you always have to have that kind of growth mindset. But as creatives, we lack a lot of confidence up front. And to earn your confidence, it's really a mixture of attitude first. You got to have a good attitude. And as you start to get more experiences and as you start to get more knowledge under your belt, it just starts to compound and build that confidence a little bit more. So if you're going into this, first 10 music videos for me were awful. So instead of looking and being like, I'm a failure and I'm awful at this, I'm getting the experience. What knowledge am I gaining from there? I had a good attitude to start out with, and that's what kept me kind of pushing through all this. But as you start to gain that experience and gain that knowledge, it builds that confidence. It's a swirl of all three of those things. As you get more confident, you just start to attract people better. When you can talk to someone on your client meetings and you've done it 100 times, you're not worried about making the right impression. You're worried about finding the right client and becoming aligned with them.
Wow. Well, Josh, thank you so much for your time and for all the important, amazing advice and information. And before we go, how can we find you online and how can we support?
Well, I'll keep it very short with just 2 places because I got a lot of different things going on. But best place to connect with me is Instagram. My IG is jmemerick. I post a ton of BTS stuff, a ton of our projects, and I link to a lot of different things that we're doing. And then if you want to check out some of our work, jacp.co, we have music videos there, we have blogs there. And, I've been trying to work more actively at providing some of this information in our YouTube, and that's all embedded into the blog as well. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Josh. Appreciate your time and good luck with all your projects out there.
Dude, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
For sure.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Haven podcast. And if you dig it and like what you heard today, please give us a nice review and rating and share it with one of your friends that you think needs some creative inspiration. You can always find more content and resources at thecreativehaven.com and hit me up on Instagram at Mitchell Doomlau. And if you want to reach out, collab, or ask any questions, you have my permission to slide into my DMs. So keep positive, continue to learn and hone your craft, and create all day. Salamat.